Thank you for the introduction. I'm really excited to share some of our recent work at this exciting symposium. I think we can all agree that the brain is incredibly complex, and one of the core questions in neuroscience are discovering the computational principles that give rise to flexible and adaptive behavior. And luckily, there has been a tremendous increase in the number of neurons that we can simultaneously observe, thanks to technical advances. And the hope is that we're getting closer to understanding the brain. However, to make the problem of studying the brain more tractable, typically experimental groups focus on a specific animal module, a specific behavioral task, brain area of interest, and different recording modalities. So if we consider the entire space of experimental data, it spans a lot of axes of variations. And we're really lacking methods that can integrate along all of these axes and help us get to some organizing principles of behavior. Now, when we talk about an integrative approach, or dare I say a foundation module, I guess one question to ask is what properties do we want this type of model to have? And one framework that has been really influential in neuroscience is one of dynamical systems, where essentially we want to learn a dynamical law, here denoted by F, that describes how the state of the system, denoted by Z, evolves over time in the presence of maybe some input and some randomness. And when we get to neural data, we're interested in learning these dynamical system modules directly from neural recordings that are potentially really high-dimensional. For instance, here's a raster plot for a single trial. And essentially, we want to perform some kind of statistical inference to learn the underlying dynamical system. And one modeling framework that allows us to do this is one of state space modules consisting of two components. One is the dynamics module that describes how the neural state evolves over time, and then the observation module that maps the state back to our high-dimensional noisy observations, denoted by Y. Now, this framework, this point of view, has been really successful at describing a lot of different behaviors, and there have been a number of approaches that have been developed to learn these directly from data. However, if we consider a bunch of different recording sessions, even if we have chronic recordings, for instance, in a single animal, we never really observe the same neurons over the course of a long time period. And to deal with all this heterogeneity, we typically fit a separate state space module and learn a separate dynamical system for each recording session, denoted by F. And since we don't have a priori knowledge of what F should look like, we typically use a large neural network to approximate these dynamics, which means that we need a lot of high-quality data to learn a good approximation of the dynamics. One potential approach to kind of alleviate some of the challenges of training or learning a good approximation of these dynamics per recording session is trying to align all of them into a common space. And this has been quite successfully applied before, and it kind of points to Juan's talk from before, where if the animals or neural networks are engaged in the same behavior, the underlying dynamics are quite similar as well. So we can try to abstract out variations and learn like a single dynamical system module. However, if we consider all the different axes of data that we might have, one question is this still the right approach to try to build a more coherent picture of all these different axes of variations? For instance, different animals might be using entirely different strategies to do the same task. And of course, if we consider neural activity across different contexts, across different cognitive behaviors, or over the course of learning, that would be non-trivial changes in the underlying dynamics as well. And in this case, how do we parameterize, or what should F look like? In our work, we propose that in order to capture all these different variations, we should instead move towards learning a meta-dynamical module, where we additionally module structured variations present across different recording sessions and learn a solution space of dynamical systems. And just to give an overview of what this might look like, let's say we have two different recording sessions, A and B, and the equations on the left denote the state space module corresponding to recording A. Now we introduce a hierarchical variable, which I'm denoting by E, which we call the dynamical embedding. And we can learn the entire space of these dynamical embeddings from different data sets, such that different points in the space instantiate a separate dynamical system. And we additionally have different observation modules to account for differences in the number of neurons across different sessions. And the nice thing is that this dynamical embedding, it's typically really low dimensional. So we've only used like a one or two dimensional embedding, which makes it really easy to interpret. And just to show you how we actually parameterize the F, this is what like our dynamics module looks like when we're only training or we're only learning from a single data set. So we typically use some multi-layer perceptron to approximate F. But now we additionally incorporate some low-rank modulation to the weights of F that are generated by another network conditioned on the dataset-specific embedding. And we use amortized variational inference to train the module, which is quite standard for training modules of these sets. Now, given this framework, we first applied it to motor cortex recordings during two tasks, the center-out task and the maze task, which have some similarities, because in both cases, the recordings are from the same areas, and the monkeys are doing some kind of reaching behavior. But there are differences as well, because we have different subjects. The modalities of the response are slightly different. And additionally, in the maze task, the animals are trained to make a reaching movement while potentially avoiding obstacles. And so we trained on 44 sessions across these different axes of variations. Just as an illustration, this is what the neural activity might look like for 4 different reaches. And if we take 44 of these sessions across a large number of trials and a large number of neurons and fit the meta-dynamical module, this is the dynamical embedding that we infer, which is 2-dimensional. And each point here corresponds to a single session, where the green and the yellow are all the sessions for the center-out task, and the blue dots correspond to the sessions from the maze task. And just to validate that it's able to concisely capture all the different variations in the data, we can generate latent dynamics conditioned on some embedding values. In this case, I'm showing an example from the maze session and an example from the center-out session, where we see that the differences are captured quite well, as is also illustrated in the decoded behavior. although the module has never seen any behavior, it's able to learn some behaviorally relevant dynamics quite well. And another nice thing is that each of the points in the embedding space, they're not just islands, and we can actually move around in the space. And the dynamics that we get, as well as the behavior, does not change entirely randomly, and it defines somewhat of a continuous space of dynamical solutions. And here I'm plotting the predicted behavior from the generated dynamics for 2 example sessions as we move around in that space. We also wanted to test if the space that we're learning can be helpful for generalizing to new data sets. So we took 2 held-out sessions from an animal that was included during training, and then we took 2 sessions from a held-out subject. And we only used 8 trials to align to the pre-trained module, and this is what the predicted behavior looks like, where the purple bar denotes our method. And even with 8 trials, it already gives us a good starting point of what the dynamics might look like, and of course, with more training samples, the performance improves. And another encouraging thing is that if we use more data to pre-train the module, it's able to learn some more coherent structure present across different recording sessions. So the dotted lines are showing the case where we pre-train using only 4 sessions, and the solid lines are when we pre-train on the entire 44 sessions. And we see that the generalization performance improves as we give the module more data. And I'm just going to briefly go over some other applications that we're really interested in exploring. Of course, Shreya already introduced the concept of compositionality quite well, where essentially we might have multiple dynamical primitives that we might combine to do different tasks. And as a preliminary experiment, we tried or we fit our module to activity from task-trained networks that were trained to do 4 different tasks. So in one task, the networks need to maintain, or the networks are presented with a stimulus location, and they need to output the same stimulus after a delay period. There's another variant where there's a memory period where the stimulus disappears. And then there are 2 different response components, the pro versus anti-response. And if we fit our module on the trajectories from these 4 different tasks without giving the module any additional information on the context, it decomposes, or the dynamical embedding shows us this decomposition of these 4 different components quite well. So we see that these are samples from the embedding in 2 dimensions, and we see that the response axes, anti versus pro, and the memory versus delay axes are quite well separated, which was encouraging. And in the interest of time, I will just quickly go over another application that we've been interested in, which is tracking dynamics over learning, which is a really difficult problem because the neural activity and the corresponding dynamics are continually changing as the animals acquire a task. And we wanted to see if this method can help alleviate some of the challenges that come with investigating these changes. So we've been training different recurrent neural networks to perform a task. And we see that the module, again, captures the learning trajectories of these different networks quite well and recovers the different solutions that the modules are learning as well. So while these are really preliminary, we're quite excited about the different directions and different applications of our approach. Of course, if you have data that might be relevant to these directions, we'd be happy to talk as well. And yeah, just quick takeaway, we introduced this integrative approach. which lets us align across. Julie had chosen us recording sessions. It lets us module structured variations and dynamics. It allows for sample-efficient inference of neurodynamics, and there are potentially a lot of different applications of this approach that we're excited to pursue in the future. And of course, for more technical details, you can check out our paper. And with that, I just want to thank my lab, especially my advisor, Meming, and my collaborators, Josue, Maj, Hyungju, Hustis. And thank you all for your attention, as well as to the organizers, of course, for putting this together.
Thank you very much.